Now we're finished. Dibur Tachtenim is finished. But now the Alter Rebbe asks the question backwards. We have a contradiction. For the first 34 parakim of Tanya, every time the Alter Rebbe mentioned Teda, like a machine, Keneged Kulam, Teda is the greatest of all. All of a sudden we get to Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin. We shift emphasis from what the Jew wants to what God wants. It's not about getting close to the Eibishter, like Biyal Amalsa, Nefesh Alaguf Maila Maila, but rather to be Mamshech Liachad Kodesh Bricho Shchinte Betachtenim, to bring Hashem down. All of a sudden we made emphasis on Maise, so resolve it. So the Rebbe is going to say there's Maidin Dika Milas and Teda, there's Maidin Dika Milas and Asiya, but they're different Milas. Okay? And the Nekuda is, the Mila of Teda is it brings on a Gavaldika Oyer. And the mile of mitzvah is that it brings it down gevaldik low. So now the Alter Rebbe goes back to Teda. Now that we spent 3 prakim on Dira B'Tachtenim, we say, what about Teda? Ma'ashakos v'razal. This is the Gemara, the Mishnah says. The Talmud Teda Keneged Kulam, the Teda is equal to all the mitzvahs. So the Alter Rebbe is going to say a number of inyanim, a number of milas and Teda. Number 1, Hainu Mepnei, the answer is, because there are milas and Teda over mitzvahs. First of all, Talmud Teda with Dibur Machshav. Teda you do with speech, and more importantly with thought. Which is the inner garments of the animal soul. Now notice that Alter Rebbe is admitting that Teda also has animal soul, which in Perek Lamed he said no. Perek Lamed is only Nefesh Elikis. V'tzadachim. V'gam moreover, Mehusan v'atzmusan shotchinas Chabad meklipas negesh v'nefesh achayunis nichlales begedusha mamish b'sheisik b'Teda b'iyin v'seichel. When you learn Teda, since your Nefesh Bahamas is included, the intellect of your Nefesh Bahamas is included. So the essence of the intellect of the animal soul, which comes from Klippa, becomes Kedusha in learning Teda through Iyun, concentration, and Seichel means wisdom. So you're, besides for the fact that you're lifting yourself up to the Eibishter, you're mevader the Seichel of your Nefesh Bahamas. In Tanya Perek Ches, the Alter Rebbe said that what's wrong with Chacham Chitzeni is that you're metama the Seichel of your Nefesh Bahamas. And in Perek Lamed Zayin he says that Talmud Teda is mevader the Seichel of the Nefesh Bahamas. No mitzvah is mevader the Moyach as Talmud Teda is. So this is a Kamayla, because you're being mevader a higher madreg of Klippa, which is a Maila. It's not Dira B'Tachtenim so much, but it's Dira B'Pnimiyim more. You're being mevader, more Pnimiyim is the Inyan, the Seichel of the Nefesh Bahamas. Even though the emissaries, the muhus, the essence of the midas, the attributes of the emotions, the beinani cannot transform into kedusha in the midas, right? What makes a beinani not a tzaddik? That the behemoth is always alive, the taivas always exist. And where are taivas? Taivas are in the lev. Says the Rabbi Mishum, the answer is Sharach Chazak Yeseh b'midas mi b'Chabad. Chabad is Eidel Ra. And Chagas is coarser Ra. Now, the truth of the matter is, Eidel Ra is worse than coarser Ra. If you're an Eidel person, if you're a good person, you don't even notice the problem with Eidel Ra. So the midas of Nefesh Bahamas are lower than the Seichel of Nefesh Bahamas, but it's easy to be mavada the Seichel of the Nefesh Bahamas. I mean, in other words, a person can be a Beinu, but he hates that he's fighting with, and nevertheless, his brain has been fixed by preoccupation with trying to understand that Hashem is Heilig Ketei, and that's his reality. There's more flow in the heart than there is in the mind from Kedusha, and therefore, ironically, it's harder to be Mevada the Midas than to be Mevada the Meichel. Now, this is, of course, in stark contrast to what people learn in the Maimed al Totzeres Meir that they've ever repeated 1,000 times, and you guys have it in the Vayishlach Yeshua, that you cannot be Mevada the Meichel B'chlal, right? Moshe Rabbeinu said to conquer 7 nations, which go on 7 Midas, but Kainik needed to look at money, you cannot be Mevada till Yosef Lovei, right? Here, the Alter Rebbe says, "Punkt verkehrt." It's easier to fix the behemoth of your the mind of your behemoth than the heart of your behemoth. And tzarich here, you have a kash. And I'm sure there's a teretz. It's not for now. So the first mile of Teda over mitzvahs is the beater of the mayach of the Nefesh Bahamas. It's not a mile of Dira B'Tachtenim, but it's a mile of a beater of bringing a to a more pnimistic level of behemoth. Zay for Eid Acheres. And there's a second mile in Talmud Teda. V'yei al kulam. This is greater than the first mile. Then the beat of the Mechin, but Milas Eisek Talmud Teda al Kol HaMitzvahs, learn Teda of all the mitzvahs. And that is, that to use the Lashon that we're all familiar with, that mitzvahs are compared to candles. And Teda is oid, it's the whole fire. There's 248 individual candles, there's one torch. Teda is one etzem, correct? Teda is one etzem. And there's 248 mitzvahs, that's why it says in Chazal, Aveda, Machaber, Mitzvah. Hanem, Monad, Rabban, and the Bolu. Mitzvahs can become a das. Teda is a leikei dvarei ke'esh mash einu mekabelas tuma after the Teda einu mekabel tuma. There's no such thing as making Teda tummy. It's pure. It's godliness. So that why? Because it's a powerful light. This is again a midanik maila in Torah, but it's not a birurim maila. It's not a tachtenim maila. It's a oir maila. You follow? There's another maila in Torah. V'hi ha'el al kulana. It's above the other mailas. The mailas eisik talmud Torah kol mitzvah. The advantage of Torah of all the mitzvahs. Al pi ma shekasel v'shem atikun. Based on what we discussed before, that means Perek Chav Gimel in the name of the Zayah. The Zayah said over there two Zayahs. One Zayah was that a mach bikud and a mach v'al mal. That mitzvahs are quote only end quote the limbs, the 248 limbs of the king. They're not the king's neshama, they're the king's goof. You're talking about the lakus. Just like in a human being, for example. You cannot compare it all. To the life of the 248 limbs. To the vitality, not of the limbs, but of the neshama and the brain. Which is the wisdom, the mind. Which is divided up into three bechinas. Chabad. Right? There's much, and by Teda we don't say Tlas bechinas Teda, Tlas meichen Chabad. We say Reise v'kutshavicho kul achad. Teda and the Eibishter are one. It's shalei be'erach. Mitzvah is only the limbs of the Eibishter. Teda is the Eibishter's Ein Sof. Says the Rebbe. Okay, kocha mamash derech moshe. The same is true in the nimshal. That lahav b'rivaves have also in case it's an incomparable separation. But that say in baruch in the revelation of the infinite light. Hamislap is b'mitzvahs ma'is that are manifest in the behavior performance of mitzvahs. It's a much diminished, much smaller light. Like Gabi Adar said in Seif Baruch in Sof, the revelation of the infinite light of Hashem. Shebechinas Chabad in Chabad shebechachmas HaTorah, which is in the wisdom of the Torah. Each individual k'visichle v'asagose, according to his wisdom and according to his understanding. The seichel of a person has infinitely more light of the Eibush than learning Torah than the limbs of a person have light in the performance of mitzvahs, because Torah is a much higher light. Your understanding is only the physical dimension of the mitzvah, not the Ein Sof of the mitzvah. So we had in Tanya Perek Dalet, Torah is compared to water. Which goes off from a high place to a low place. And the fact that you're only able to understand Torah at the Gashmizik level does not matter. The bottom line is that in Torah there's Ein Sof. So we spoke two milas in Torah over mitzvahs, but they're different milas. Number one is the bidder of the moyach of the nefesh habahamis, which is not done through mitzvahs. And number two, Torah is poshet. That's what the din is. Misha Drasei Nasei. It's part of a mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are small lights. And Torah is the general light. But in terms of birurim of tachtenim, the bittul, the gufa, the nefesh habahamis, and your own gashmis and chalki be'elam, which is a carbon to the Eibishter, brings the Eibishter to the lowest level, and that's the mile of mitzvahs over Torah.